Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Friday the 9th of December comes to you from London. And we'll start by looking at currencies, then we'll take a look at some the US stock markets, European stocks, Asia, then some commodities, and last of all, we'll take a look at some bellwether US stocks. And so we start by looking at the dollar index. These are my long-term charts, my medium-term charts, and my short-term charts. So this unique six-frame view just allows me to quickly go through and see what's changing. And the big change in the last 24 hours is the dollar index has moved back into this positive territory above the cloud. So we do have these downside targets. We have a new upside thrust that will ultimately give us an upside thrust target when that column is locked. So it looks like the dollar, having sold off a bit, starting a new recovery potentially, and we saw that happen in early November, then the run after the election. So dollar still looking pretty bullish. Euro actually is below the cloud now as well, so it obviously does the reverse of the dollar, and we see here that we've fallen below the cloud on the 60-minute chart. That will set us up with a new downside target here, not yet given. We still have this target given back in November of 101 hanging over us. So at the moment we have a lot of downside potential. If we really break these lows, and we'll see that on the long-term chart as well, break these lows, and then we really do start to, and that's, you can see it here on the weekly chart at about 105. We break those lows, and we really then start to move towards parity. So looking at the yen, dollar now starting to go higher again, having had it pause for breath, back above the cloud here on the 60-minute chart. Upside target of 1.5% here, and no clear long-term targets, interestingly, but we are just starting to break through the cloud on the price. Looking at sterling, sterling is sitting around this 125 to the US dollar level. New downside target of 122.74 was given. That's 2.5% downside, back into the low 20s. That's given and activated. We do have a new medium-term upside target that is activated as well, but at the moment you'd favor the downside, bearish on all three time frames. And if we look at sterling against other currencies, here we see against the euro, did recover a bit, but is still below the cloud, has gone through on the medium term, euro looking weaker than sterling is the picture now. But interestingly, we're still pretty bearish on, that's the Swiss franc, and the Australian dollar, still pretty bearish, testing these levels. Taking a look at stock markets, the S&P 500 index had another good night. The day before on Wednesday really rocketed, and the key thing is it's held on to those gains. And we see here in the on the 60-minute chart how we're above the cloud, 2250 now. So we really are just holding those levels. That's really key. And we've got upside to 2263 as the target that we've been gunning for. Longer term, targets of 15, 20, 23% upside. Stock markets in the US looking like they're going to have a very good year next year. And if we take a look at the 1-minute chart, just to get a feel for how the S&P should close today, we can go to the 1-minute chart. So we see 2259 on the on this. This is the 3x3. You'd normally would use the 5x3. It's just a better box size. And we see here we'd had this upside target to 2255. We're nearly there now. So that target was given a month ago, now met. We've got a new upside target, 2320, and that's the target that we're playing for at the moment. If I go to smaller box sizes still, the 1x3, we start to see on the really micro level that we don't really have any clear upside targets at the moment. We might see some price action at the opening today, creating new targets. Keep an eye on these 1-minute charts for where the market's going next. But at the moment, we do have a little downside target, 22.27, but that's not yet activated. We'd have to fall below the 22.42 level to activate that. So watch for new targets being built into today's price action at the opening. If we take a look at the Nasdaq, Nasdaq still failing to break this 4900 level. There's really quite strong resistance there, and until we break that, it's really quite key. We're in this range. Move into the pattern sideways, we'd expect to move out, and we've just gone bullish on the 60-minute as well. With everything that the other markets are doing, we really do expect tech to break, and we've got again very strong upside target potential here as well in the medium to long term. The Dow is making new all-time highs, really quite key here. Just motoring, it really is just motoring. So the US bellwether stocks really having an impact. And again, wanting to see if we'll close the week higher. Will we break the 20,000 level? Take a look at the 1 minute chart. Press the T key on your system. We have to go down to pretty small box sizes. If you're trading something like the Dow, you can go to the 10 by 3. The 5 by 3, you can see we've got targets in either direction. And more importantly, we go to the right down to the 1 by 3. This is the micro level. Every point gives us a key as to where we're going, and we do have some downside targets. So it does suggest that the Dow will probably just have a little bit of a sell-off in the very short term. Watch for the opening, watch for any new upside targets. This is the way to watch the markets in the short term. The 1 minute point and figure charts are amazing. If we take a look at the Russell 2000 index, again making new highs, just continuing to go to new highs. No clear short-term targets at the moment. We're just really just motoring on up, but we do have some very clear long-term targets to the upside. So Russell looking very good as well. The S&P future is fairly flat this morning. If we look at the Nasdaq, the E-mini, we're above on the 60-minute. We haven't broken this 4,900 level here either, and we are in the long term still in this range. So again, taking a look at the 1 minute chart, this will give us a heads up as to whether the Nasdaq is going to break. And we see this morning in the London market, we're not yet open in the US, but we see this morning that the Nasdaq E-mini has got this new upside target of 50.65, so that would break through that 4,900 level. Here we see it. That's the 4,900 level there. We'd break through that. We've got a downside target of 45.50, but we have got a new uptrend. We'd favor that upside, and if we just go to the smallest box size, go to 1 by 3, we start to see here how we've exceeded this target. We've got an upside target of 0.5% and a downside target here as well, but this is not taking us above the 4,900 level. We need new price action to give us new thrust targets, but we can actually get a heads up as to whether we're going to break that trend support at that 4,900 level by just watching that 1 minute chart. If we look at FTSE, just slightly up this morning, above the cloud though on all time frames now, looking pretty bullish. Market's just generally looking better and better all the time now. FTSE 250 looking good as well, and the DAX really rising here. The short term upside here, 4.2% to play for, and that long term transition through the weekly, bullish on all time frames. German market set to run. Looking at the Nikkei, again just going ever and ever higher, just about to break on the weekly. That's highly significant. So the Nikkei looking good. Shanghai was up 0.5% overnight, not quite through yet on the 60-minute chart. And the Hang Seng, again, we are just bullish here. Shortage of upside targets in the short term, and we are just wandering below the cloud in the medium term, and we're not through in the long term. So Hang Seng's just not looking quite as good as Tokyo at the moment. And then if we look at the Indian market, bullish here as well, not quite above on the daily chart. But still holding on to the long-term uptrend as well. Australian market has made the transition on all 3 time frames, a bit like the German market, interestingly, through on the weekly, through on the daily, through on the 60-minute. Upside targets of 5 and 7%. Looks like Aussie is going to run in the new year. That's looking good. Now looking at commodities, Brent crude is up this morning, so we are just seeing that again, where we are just seeing the Brent is now going through this weekly cloud, just pulled below the on the short term here, but recovering back through the cloud. So what's interesting is big moves up, short term consolidations moving higher again. Be very interesting to see if we can go above this 55 level after that OPEC move. A move higher confirms all these buyers here, and we have got 54.94 as the target, 1% upside. Does look pretty bullish, and we know we're going into the strong part of the new year, so crude looking pretty good. And in fact, if we take a look at the 1 minute chart just to get a heads up on where crude might go today, we can see here how we've got this upside potential. We do have downside targets, but we're really finding this support here, And if we just go down a further box size, no really clear upside targets. Once we go down to the smaller ones, though, interestingly, we had this downside target nearly met. The fact that we didn't quite get there is bullish confirmation, and now we've got quite a few upside targets in the short term. If you're trading crude, looking at these 1 minute charts is absolutely vital. Take a look at WTI. We're again above in the cloud here. Heating oil just below at the moment, but moving higher. US nat gas really just again moving higher as well. So we see here above on the weekly, above on the daily, above on the 60-minute, and $4 is looking more and more likely for US nat gas. So that's quite key. If we look at corn, just starting to go higher, still bearish in the long term, but we are through on these two shorter term time frames. And if we look at wheat, we'll see much the same picture, just above in the short term, but a bit bearish. And look at these, all these targets to the downside. So it does look like softs are going to have less good time next year. If we go straight to gold, we see here gold is really struggling on the 60-minute chart, just stuck in this range, 1160, 1180, pretty tight range there for gold, and we just have to wait for a breakout. We see here there's the support level around this 1160 level. All right, we're not really getting a lot of touches on it, but we are just sort of stuck in this trading range. We can break this 1180 and just hold it for a few hours, then we're probably going to run to these upside targets, 1204, 1198, so 1200. We have had quite a sell-off here, finding support potentially on the cloud, and we know that gold really does tend to rise strongly in the first few weeks of the year. So we're waiting in for that. If we look at silver, silver's slightly up, doing better than gold. It is trending, and it does tend to lead gold a little bit. So there's hope yet that the gold price might do the same. Finding support on the cloud here, so looking better than gold. Copper, bit mixed on the short-term chart, just holding off for breath here. It's just taking some time, but really this long-term transition we can't ignore. US interest rates sitting still at this 2.24%, sorry, 2.42%. We're holding these levels, so that is just really hanging on. We are in a sideways range at the moment. The key thing is, can we break 2.5% yield? Just last of all, looking at some tech, Apple broke higher above the cloud, Google much the same. All the tech stocks starting to look better now. Amazon not quite above on the lagging line. Facebook also not quite yet above on the lagging line, but looks like it's saying goodbye to these mid 115 area and heading back into the 120s. Long-term targets looking great still for this stock. And we take a look at Microsoft. Again, quite a strong showing above the cloud, just nudging higher to new highs. The weekly cloud just nudging higher. Microsoft looking pretty good. That's it for today. Until Monday, happy charting. See you then.